It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and I am still battling asthma shit, and the brain fog today is really, really bad. So I'm gonna do my best and I'm drinking ginger beer to help my throat. It's also delicious, which is a nice side benefit, but I'm gonna do my best to be as coherent as possible this Wellness Wednesday. I may not succeed just because so very foggy today. If you like this sort of content, despite the brain fog, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. Now, we are not talking about brain fog today. We are talking about the mantra, everything is not about you. Now, this isn't about narcissists. This is a helpful, everything is not about you. I've noticed that people, and I don't know if this has gotten worse because of COVID and the less socializing or whatever, but I have noticed that people are really getting paranoid about the reactions of others. Some of it is because of past trauma. So anything I say going forward is not, if you've been traumatized, if you've been abused and you have issues, regarding never having functional, stable relationships in your life, and you have these sorts of issues accordingly, that is not your fault, okay? What I'm trying to do here is give you permission to ease up on yourself some. That is the intention of this video. It is not to make anyone feel bad. But this is the first thing I'm going to tell you, is the idea of someone made you feel bad. Examine that and challenge that. I'm not saying that it does happen. Sometimes people are deliberately cruel. They know something's going to hurt you. They do it to hurt you. That is making someone feel bad. But the vast majority of people don't do that on a regular basis. They just don't know something hit someone the wrong way. And the important thing to keep in mind with the everything isn't about you mantra is that the way other people speak, act, think, feel, it's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to control it. It's not your responsibility to obsess over it. But also, it's not really your responsibility to want to change them. You can decide whether you want to be around someone or don't want to be around someone based on their behavior. But needing or expecting them to change is an indication of a relationship that may not be in great shape. Everybody has things about them that annoy other people. I hear quite a bit about how annoying I am. But there's only so much you can do about that, because some of it is just subjective judgments of other people, and some people are just critical and judgmental and haven't developed that skill of that's just them. If it's not hurting anybody, keyword, if it's not hurting anybody, then so what? Get space when someone does something that you find irritating, right? But more and more, it just seems like the way people socialize is all about gossiping about other people and picking them apart, and like everything about their mannerisms and the sound of their voice and this, that, the next thing. It just seems to be, yes, social media brings us out in people, but you may remember me talking before about girls' nights and why I can't stand them. Same thing, just freaking complaining sessions, just talking smack about somebody who's not in the room, right? It's that joke about why women go to the bathroom in pairs, because if you go to the bathroom in pairs, they have to talk shit about both of you. So both of you are getting trash talked instead of everybody ganging up on one person. Kind of a joke, but there's some truth in that joke. You can't do anything about this. And it's a difficult skill to learn, especially if you have a lot of empathy, especially if you were bullied through marginalization and ostracization when you were younger or to this day. I don't care what anybody says. As somebody who's been through some shit in my life, ostracization bullying is up with the worst. Worse than getting physically beat up. Worse than having mean things said to you. When you are shunned, when you are shut out of various communities by gatekeepers. And somebody asked about this last week before. Anyway, it's awful. It is a truly terrible thing to experience. And I know a lot of people who watch this content have a really hair trigger about being left out of things. And that's totally understandable and it's totally valid. Like I said, isolation, like ostracization sucks. And sometimes what it can do is it makes you less likely to ostracize people who deserve it. Ostracizing people for poor behavior instead of just strange behavior, right? Sometimes it takes some wisdom to know the difference between a harmful behavior and just a weird behavior. But if you listen to your internal gut, like you listen to that inner voice, you know whether you think someone's mean, whether you think someone's being cruel, or whether they're just different, right? Now, the thing is, if you're constantly obsessing about what other people think about you, if you're making everything about you, every little exchange, every mannerism, every, slightly distracted response that somebody has, if you're making all those things about what did I do? Are they mad at me? Did I do something? All that stuff. You can't hear that inner voice telling you whether something is okay or not. You're drowning it out with anxiety about the actions of other people. And for many people, yes, again, they have never had an example of a functional, stable relationship, or they were so abused as a kid that they can't recognize the markers of a functional, stable relationship when they see it. And one of the markers of a functional, stable relationship is that I want to be careful with my language here because, my instinct is to go, adults don't do this. Plenty of adults do what I'm about to say because they are not mature adults. They're not balanced, right? They are not, they are out of touch with their inner voice as well. So balanced people don't actively punish other people for hurting them. And you're like, oh, come on. People do this all the time. Yeah, a lot of people aren't balanced. Okay. There's a big difference between saying this thing you did upset me or this thing you did put me in a bad place or something like that. And the silent treatment and acting miffed and taking little barbs at people. And I know that behavior is rampant. That behavior is everywhere. Everybody does it to an extent. Sometimes it's innocent because sometimes it's just you don't want to get into it with the person now. You need to sort of get from point A to point B. And so you're like, biting your tongue. And you can't totally control your reactions. But we all know there are plenty of other people that deliberately do punishing behaviors because they're mad at someone. It's toxic to relationships. It's widespread. It is. I guarantee you, all of us have at least one person in their life that does that. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it because, I describe it when I've taken issue with people on this. I said, you're forcing somebody to walk into an emotional buzzsaw, right? Instead of going, hey, can we talk about something? You're making them go to you and go, what did I do? Or are you mad? And then it's brah, right? That's not fair. That's not fair because your behavior is not their responsibility. If you don't choose to be forthcoming with them, why should they give a damn whether they pissed you off about it? You don't know how to handle it maturely, right? I'm talking to a hypothetical person. I'm not saying anybody directly in the audience. I'm being really careful with this one because I know there are some real tender feelings surrounding it. And there's a shining example of caring about someone's feelings, not because I'm obligated to care about someone's feelings, because I want to care about someone's feelings. Here's the one weird trick, though. You can't want to care about another person's feelings until you no longer feel obligated to care about a person's feelings. What? That sounds weird. Let me try it again. There is a huge mental, psychological, emotional difference between feeling like you must do something and feeling like you want to do something. We're gamers, right? We understand that choice must exist before you can make said choice. Well, if you're not allowing yourself the choice whether or not to care about another person's feelings, you're not allowing yourself the choice. And this is where a lot of people pleasers get into trouble because they think they have to keep everybody happy as some sort of survival trait or something like that. And when it comes right down to it, they become less and less and less effective because, let's face it, people only have so much energy. You know, people only have so many spoons, so to speak. You know, you can't keep everyone happy. You can't fix every upset. You can't. And if you try, you're not being fair to the people who you want to be your priorities. So many people don't stop and think about what they want because they are just on this treadmill of obligation, and it will wear you down. Trust me, I'm somebody who just came off a big creative project and my entire goddamn health system collapsed, right? This can happen emotionally too. If you're constantly seeing to your obligations with other people, eventually your mental health system is going to collapse like my freaking entire immune system did because I got so run down. But there's something about the world that has set these narratives that you can somehow coerce or manipulate people into liking you more or into giving you stuff, or I don't even know what it's supposed to do because it's not authentic relationships. You know, all this networking stuff. Networking has closing, all that stuff. You don't close with a friend, okay? There is a member of my family that I have nothing to do with now because they were a salesperson who was not capable of doing anything but a hard sell all the time. Everything was a choice funnel. Everything was, so how many can I put you down for? Everything was pressured to limit the freedoms, limit the options of, well, in my case, me. And I just got sick of it. The person could not turn it off. And I just got so done because it wasn't even effective manipulations, right? It was just, I saw what the person was doing. It was obvious. They weren't really trying to hide it very much. And I got the sense eventually that this person just thought, this is the way of the world. This is the way everyone is. Every social interaction is some sort of manipulation so that other people get less stuff and you get more stuff. You get what you want. That's the whole point. The agency or autonomy of other people did not matter to this individual. That I was determined, and so I was done. Because I am not a people pleaser. Now it's funny because this was something I recognized as sort of a toxic dynamic in my own family. Many people in my family are utterly ridiculous people pleasers. Like to the point of their own detriment. You know, they go and they do and all that stuff. And then when they try to take me time, or they try to take something like, when they try to be more healthy, the fundamentals are so lacking that what they end up doing is they end up being reliable to the people closest to them, because they're out trying to please all these other strangers or near strangers. It's just a compulsion. And I was always seen as the disagreeable one, the unpleasant one in my family. I know if you watch Wellness Wednesday, you may find this very strange. It is very strange. That's how unhinged my family was in this regard. Did it express more in women? Yes. But, in the men in my family, there was that sort of Protestant work ethic thing where, you watch, older male members of the family go do backbreaking work, really hard work, lousy pay, ridiculous hours, wearing their body down, so they could keep food on the table and a roof over people's heads. And, it was selfless, but then they drank themselves ill or to death. It's just a manifestation of the same thing at the core. That's what I determined anyway, not to psychoanalyze people or anything like that. That was my observation. That, it is sort of an inverted, that's how blue collar men people please, right? It's no more healthy. It's no more assertive. It's harder to spot because of the way it manifests, right? You don't think that doing backbreaking labor to bring home a paycheck is agreeable or people pleasing. But, in a lot of ways, if you think about it, it kind of is. Why do you think there's this huge thing where people are suddenly quitting their jobs en masse because they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Right. Okay. So now that we've sort of unpacked what this can look like, why is it an issue? Well, we've gone back to that choice thing, right? If you never think it's okay to just not give a shit that somebody's annoyed at you, if you don't think it's ever okay to be like, well, they're pissed off, I don't know what about, I guess they'll get over it. If you never give yourself permission to do that, how do you know you actually care about this person's opinion? And how do they know that you care about their opinion? Because it comes across as this sort of Pavlovian conditioning of please like me, please like me, please like me every time a bell rings. You don't form deep and lasting relationships if you have to be liked by everyone. I get comments about certain really good friends of mine, and people try to pull the, how can you be friends with that guy or that girl or whatever? They're such an asshole. And it's like, one of the things I find charming about a lot of my friends is that they don't need to be liked by everyone. And they will sometimes just come out and say something, and it's kind of a spicy take, but they have an opinion and they'll stand by their opinion, and they really don't care if that opinion upsets people because they're not being hateful and they're not being mean. Those are people I know like me for me because they're not just nice to everybody. Do you get what I'm saying? So if some of y'all think that the people I associate with are, why does she hang around those? They're so disagreeable. Well, yeah, that's why I like them. Because they're not just nice to everyone. They're nice to people who deserve it. That makes them more trustworthy in my mind. Just because the way they express themselves is more aggressive than me most of the time, that doesn't, you guys have seen me be aggressive on, part of the reason I took a big long break from Twitch I'm having some technical difficulties right now on Twitch. If anybody's interested, I can't get the PS5 to stream properly. So that's why I haven't been back to Twitch yet. But part of the reason I just took a break from Twitch is I couldn't voice a goddamn opinion without somebody jumping down my throat. And it wasn't fun. And one of my big rules for social media is that something, any sort of the streaming, anything like this, it's something I have to want to do, not something I have to feel compelled to do. Yes, I know it's a job and I know it's money and all that stuff, but you know, with the Wellness Wednesday stuff and some of the services connected to that, I'm trying to get away from that because the obligation is just crushing. And I have taken that time to go, do I really want to do this? Do I still enjoy this? Is there still positives as well as all the negatives? I take that stock. I take that stock with a lot of people every so often. And usually the answer is yes, right? Like, yes, I still like this person, even though, you know, everybody comes with a certain amount of liability. Everybody comes with something that's exposing or challenging about them. Every single person. And if you look at someone and you can't identify one or two things that are like that, you don't know that person. Because everybody's got them. I know what the challenging aspects of my personality are. They're deliberate. Because my attitude is, I'd rather not waste my time with someone. Let's have the hard conversation early. And of course, some people is, oh, she's a bitch. You know, like, oh, heaven forbid, I just want to resolve a conflict and deal with it when it's small and come at somebody straight and go like, hey, what gives? Instead of doing that, I'm not mad. No, I'm not mad. Why would I be mad? That thing I said was toxic. Like, that gets you labeled a bitch. Fuck off. I don't care because, you know, the minute I get the sense that somebody doesn't appreciate the forthcomingness, doesn't appreciate somebody going, okay, we're going to stop now. This doesn't work for me. And here's why. This is what I need. If people don't appreciate that adulting, I no longer give a shit about their opinion. And yes, sometimes you have to deal with people for work and stuff like that. But at least for me, the nature of what I do, I found it's really super important to discover those sort of snakes in the grass early, get away from them as far as possible, because the sort of work I do is all shots on goal, right? It's about trying to meet as many people who maybe we have common interests and collaborate on projects together, but they got to be trustworthy and, you know, they have to reflect well on me in the ways I care about. So if there's somebody who's just unscrupulous and does that sort of shit, no, they're gone. They are gone from my universe as fast as I possibly can find out. And so that means I tend to have frank conversations with people earlier than a lot of people will. That is a challenging element about myself. I like that challenging element about myself. And if people don't like that challenging element, they're not a good fit for me. And that's the difference between somebody who is just, you know, big five agreeable. I think anybody who watches Wellness Wednesday knows, you know, I have a lot of compassion for people. I can see a lot of different sides. I'm very open to hearing other people's perspectives. You know, there are just a few ground rules. And it's those ground rules that stop the problematic people pleasing. Problematic people pleasing. I said that twice. Hey, there you go. Now, yes, I dropped problematic because people pleasing isn't always a problem. Right? If you want to help somebody out that's going through a difficult time, but you want to, you don't feel like you have to make them like you, that's not problematic people pleasing. If you feel compelled to help people, to fill some lonely hole inside you, or to make them like you, to get friends, that's problematic people pleasing. Because again, you cannot control the way people speak, act, think, and feel. You can't. There is this weird thing in the world that people have been convinced that they can control what other people do. You can influence what other people do. You can set a good example for other people to follow. You can choose to not associate with people who behave poorly. But you're not on a personal level responsible for the way other people speak, act, think, and feel. Nor can you control it. Now, I say on a personal level because professionally, obviously, if you're the boss of something and an employee acts out, you got to do something about it, right? That's not what we're talking about here. This isn't career counseling. This is Wellness Wednesday, right? So I'm going to say one other thing. Because maybe this will, I try to say things a bunch of different ways, hoping that something will stick for, different types of thinkers. Use a lot of different metaphors because something will land with different types of people. Everything isn't about you is the way we began, right? And we're landing on that too in a different way. Because the sort of twin to everything isn't about you is that no one really likes someone who's desperate to be liked. People can feel the insecurity coming off. They might not know exactly what it is, but it gives people a sense of unease when people are not comfortable and they are super desperate to be liked. And it's a gut thing. If you actually think about it, you can tell when somebody's, if you're listening to that inner voice, you can tell when someone's really uncomfortable and really desperate to either have everybody like them or have everybody think highly of them. There's a few people I know who I think are exceptionally smart and exceptionally talented and have legitimate skills, but they just oversell themselves to the point that I have to acknowledge that they are kind of bullshit artists. Not to the point of that person I talked about before, that everything was a hard sell, everything was an attempted closing. These people are just, there's some big claims being made here, and I wish you'd just chill, because I really like these people for who they are. I don't like who they pretend to be. So keep those two things in mind. Everything isn't about you, and no one likes someone who's desperate to be liked. And just be you. The most important thing is that you like yourself and you like what you say and what you do and what you think and what you feel. And into each life, some rain must fall, right? Everybody has ups and downs. Again, if you never feel bad, you don't know when you feel good. But you shouldn't feel bad all the time. And one of the best ways to feel bad all the time is to constantly be obsessing what people think and feel about you, whether people like you. Because that means one of two things. You got a lot of work to do on yourself, or it means the people around you are really not good for you. And what happens is it gets into one of those reinforcing spirals, right? Of people around you aren't good for you, so you feel lousy about yourself, so you attract people who aren't good for you, and so you feel even lousier about yourself, and so your entire social circle is people who feel lousy about themselves and who aren't good for each other, just staying friends because they're terrified of somebody not liking them. That's not really friendship. Because it's an illusion of choice. It's not real choice. Okay, so everything is not about you. And that's a good thing. Everything certainly isn't about me, but my Patreon is about me. That was a terrible fucking segue. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.